Welcome to Scorched Earth, a burning wasteland some of the worst animals call their home. But this time it's worse. A whole bunch of new creatures showed up, from massive arachnids, desert-dwelling monsters, horned tyrants, and elder dragons. My name is Arcrector and I have 100 days to survive this desert, collect the artifacts and challenge the Manticore. Will I be able to complete that? Only one way to find out, so let's jump into it. I woke up on a hot day surrounded by sand, and more sand. I looked around for a bit, grabbed some fiber near me. I fought this tree to get some wood, but I almost lost against it. A little bit further up there was a water vein that I desperately tried to somehow stay alive. Some saber-toothed tigers were running away from me for some reason. I still left the area just to be safe, but I perished shortly after, due to the intense heat and a big bird. After respawning in a much cooler area, I got chased off by a Titanoboa, managed to get away from it, finally got some wood and made a stone pickaxe. Some cloth gear as well as a stone hatchet was made to ease my gathering. I found the Titanoboa from earlier, but dead, probably because of that Technosaurus near the water. As the night fell upon me, I had to make a campfire, hid behind a boulder and cooked some meat. In the night between day 1 and 2, I tried my best to not freeze to death. Made more cloth armor and a mini Arcrector chibi to join me. Spotted a nice little wolf close by and realized I either had to run or stay and fight. I chose to fight. So I crafted more chibis to gain a bunch of XP until I reached the right level to craft a bowler. I approached the wolf, but he was engaged in combat with this Oreanosaurus. Sadly managed to kill it and then targeted me, so I bowlered him and poked his snoot. I should have run away or thrown the spears, because the wolf broke free, did a quick little U-turn and bit me in the face. So, time to respawn again. I saw a Shantungosaurus in the distance and tried to avoid it at all costs. I decided to stay in this somewhat safe little valley, gathered resources all over again, came across another good water source, leveled and gathered to get a bow, arrows, spears, which I turned into wooden spear bolts for extra damage, scavenged this dead body, and started taming this Oreanosaurus, to hopefully be my first tame. Also killed a second terrorbird, and then got surprised by a nasty sandstorm upon nightfall. There was nothing I could do during a sandstorm besides waiting. Once gone, I immediately ran back to the Oreanosaurus and continued the taming. But this is Ark, so of course something had to happen. I only looked away for a little bit to kill this tech raptor, and shortly after, the dino I tried to tame died. So I decided it would probably be best if I wouldn't waste my time. So I started with my starter base to keep me safe. I also unlocked and managed to get all the items for a simple forge. While scrap metal was being cooked, I started to tame up the other Oreanosaurus. Meanwhile, I was able to craft a much needed smithy and a metal pickaxe as well in order to harvest these 2 metal nodes properly. For the rest of the day, I tried to tame up the Oreano. I got pretty far, but of course it had to happen. She got a bit too close to a carnivore that was stuck on some rocks and got eaten. So I was still by myself, but that wouldn't stop me. I walked out into the wilderness a bit and killed some jaguars and raptors for hide that I so desperately needed. I used this hide to craft a crossbow. A super heat wave took me by surprise, however it wasn't too much of a deal. After the super heat was over, towards the end of day 4, I started taming this decent level Baler, a very friendly type of bird that looks similar to a Deinonychus. She was tamed and named in the early morning of day 5, and Christy here was a really good mount, capable of harvesting berries and fiber in large numbers. She even had the ability to fall longer and slower. Exploring the burning hot desert would be a lot easier with her. And that's exactly what I did. I found a nice little XP boost from Helena Walker and kept on looking for Crystal. Christy wasn't the strongest fighter, but she got the job done. Eventually we made it onto a mountain where obsidian and crystal had been obtained, and thus I made the awesome spyglass, giving me a huge advantage against the wilderness. We quickly made our way back to base, but within the valley I spotted a high-level concave Venator, and this vile predator couldn't live here. So I crafted some stone structures and placed a trap, and I lured him inside. Not to knock him out, no, rather to put him to sleep permanently. Afterwards, I walked up to the green obelisk, and there I spotted a cute little sheep, which I disposed of for its sweet, sweet mutton. I also gotta say, Chrissy is perfect for traveling through this rough terrain, simply jumping up cliffs and over small canyons. At base, I finally crafted a full set of desert cloth, which would protect me from the intense heat. And for the rest of the day, I expanded my base, raised some walls and a roof, placed some essentials down as well. On day 7, I didn't do much besides taming this adorable Cetacosaurus. He was named Quill. He He apparently had the ability to throw some damage back at physical attackers. With him on my shoulder, we entered the actual Dune region for the first time, to get some easy kite. On my way back home, however, I stumbled upon this Dilophovenetrix. She was pretty close to my base, so I decided it would be best to trap her. She ran into the trap without any hesitation. Then I had the brilliant idea to knock her out using a boomerang. And I got pretty close, but eventually gave up and killed her instead. I don't know why I did that. In the early morning, some narcotic and spark powder was made. I then headed out into the unknown wilderness. I was probably looking for some stronger and better creatures. I mean, I came across a couple hostile monstrosities, but nothing I could tame at this point I'm currently at. Anyway, once safe and sound, I made some trank arrows and headed back to the green obelisk. There I tranked this low-level thorny dragon, because I grew tired of harvesting wood by hand, and a low-level dragon should help me out for now. I opened this green drop with some funky stuff inside, whilst the lizard was sleeping. Once he became my friend, I named him Martin. I got him back to base and crafted a bunch of clay, which I needed for his saddle. In the meantime, I did some hardcore parkour on the cliff sides to reach some metal nodes, and collected as much as I could carry. Martin also obtained his well-deserved saddle, and although he was a low level, he would make it a lot easier collecting wood. Also, this loot drop gave me an oil pump, so I grabbed it as soon as I had the chance. Then it was about time I placed some defensive spike walls next to my base, just in case, and gathered even more wood. But whilst knocking down trees, I saw a pack of Dino Crocuda near me. These large hyenas are absolute units. Low health but insane damage for their size. I knew I had to get rid of them. So I placed a single spike wall down, jumped on the small edge and lured the hyenas to me. Christy thought it would be a good idea to do this, so I whistled her to safety. I used the flame arrows I got earlier to roast the targets to death. Landed this insane shot, got rid of the remaining ones and even trapped one, but couldn't passively tame him sadly. You probably already know what happened to him. Anywho, I crafted a bunch of trank arrows and wanted to go to the dunes once more. But then I saw something. A max level Eureka monster. A unique raptor-like cryptid. This speedy fella would be a really nice addition. I gathered some wood in the cover of the night, and later on placed the oil pump I got a few days ago. Checked to see if the Eureka monster was still there, and after hopping back and forth whilst crafting trank arrows, I thought it would be a good idea to tame that cryptid. I had to fight some hostiles nearby, placed the trap, but she didn't want it to go or even stay inside. She chased me and was so fast I had to jump onto this rock to be safe. She turned around and had some beef with my trap after a couple of minutes though. But giving up wasn't an option for me. I grabbed some of Quill's feathers and used them to make venom arrows to specifically annoy this Anteosaurus until he ran away. After that I tried to get the Eureka's attention.
Why are you running?
And it worked. A bit too well. She knocked me off Christy and got rid of me. As soon as I woke up in my bed, I crafted a personal gravestone to get my stuff back. However, there was also a sandstorm going on, so I claimed Christy and Quill to be dead by now. A Eureka monster in a sandstorm is like a shark in a blood frenzy. There's no way they survived. Once the storm faded, I still wanted to check if my dinos are somehow still alive, just in case, but not alone. So I tamed this low-level gigant Spinosaurus at the Green Obelisk. He was named Spine. He wasn't the fastest, strongest, or best mount, but he did his job well enough. I also gave this Delta Dromia some food. I could only feed this guy during nighttime, so I had to wait. I got dismounted by a lovely Microraptor right next to some big dinos, but managed to get away. I went back home, gathered some stuff for stone dino gates, if I still wanted to tame that Eureka monster. And as the sun settled, I headed back to the Delta Dromius, tamed him up, named him SCP. On the way to the base, however, I changed his name to Toyota. I also crafted much stronger armor, and Toyota was a really good mount. He could jump pretty well, harvest fiber, and was okay-ish strong, but he also scared away smaller critters by simply looking at them. And most things would just ignore him, which made it even better. Toyota and I ran back to the mountain where I died, and you can color me surprised, but Christy and Quill were both alive. Or just Christy. I quickly put her inside a soul ball, removed the damaged trap and got the hell out of there. Then proceeded to explore the dunes a bit more to, well, once again, obtain chitin as well as organic polymer. Specifically to make a harpoon launcher and net projectile. Near the end of day 14 I replaced some of my wooden base with adobe structures. That process continued till the next morning. After that I headed back to the mountains to get more obsidian and cleanse the dunes of some mantis. But that's not all. Since I had a mount that got ignored by pretty much everything, I was now capable of exploring the desert even more and safer, allowing me to walk up to the more dangerous mountains nearby. I continued with this little run till the next day until I saw another Dino Crocuta pack, and I really wanted some of them sooner or later. So I got rid of the rest of the pack till the max level one was left. But I got surprised by another sandstorm. Yet again. So I quickly built a tent and placed it down and waited till the storm was gone. Once that was the case, I gave up on the max level hyena since it joined another large pack. After a long way home, I placed some pipes and was finally able to make a harpoon launcher and net projectile to make taming a lot easier. Speaking of taming, I quickly knocked out this level 168 Doedicurus. On day 18 he was still slowly taming up, but there was a problem. A pack of big ol' hyenas was way too close to my future armadillo friend, so I lured them into this little waterhole and rained arrows down upon them, until there were only 3 left. I killed 2 with Toyota, only 1 more to go, but I pulled in natural causes and paid 0 attention to my stamina. Toyota got really low in health, so I jumped off and watched him die. I ran back to Christie. I was curious to see if I could tame the killer of Toyota, but of course not. I had to be level 72. I always forget that. The Doedicurus was finally tamed at day 19 and I named him Boulder. Once balled up, I quickly checked out this red loot drop. I was also just mass crafting chibis for XP and gathered a good amount of both sand and stone with Boulder. Later on, I saw a purple drop descending from the sky, and this one had a pretty decent shotgun. The next day I simply jumped around to reach some drops and metal nodes, and looked for a potential gatherer. A Stygimoloch would be nice, but preferably a higher level one. Anyway, I knocked out this high level Anki instead. He took his sweet time to tame up, so I crafted a long neck, along some ammo and gained XP the easy way. He took his sweet time just laying on the floor, munching away at those berries, so in the meantime I decided to check out some of the loot drops in the distance. Did I get anything useful from them? No, not really. Look! I glided and jumped back towards the Yankee, and once he was tamed I named him Grog. Shortly after I opened this purple drop with a better shotgun. Grog made it a lot easier to gather flint and metal, but he was really slow. Hence why I would have preferred a Stygimoloch. I crafted even more chibis till I reached the level to tame a Dino Crocuta, which was exactly the thing I attempted to do at the end of this day, armed with a net projectile if things get out of hand. I tried to figure out the best way to approach them, cause one wrong move and they would have mauled me. Luckily the max level 1 was stuck on this drop and I got the first feed in. Now it would take a real long time until I could feed her again. Instead of just sitting there, I did something productive. Spine and I gathered some things. He almost died thanks to some raptors, but I saved him. And then expanded my little base a bit, as well as changed the interior. I also placed 2 crop plots near the pipes to start some greenhouse action. Spine had this useful ability to provide me with infinite poop. And towards the evening I checked the hyena again, but her taming process was gone. She probably fought against something, so let's do this again. I fed the level 180 first, but had to wait for the second feed, so I tamed the low level male as well. Although he was pretty low, he did the highest damage out of all my creatures. Not that far off I spotted a high level male Dino Crocuta. You know me, I couldn't resist the urge to tame him. He was really hungry for some reason and tamed up in no time. Since he was a higher level, he gained the pack leader buff, and even with just these 2 hyenas we did some insane damage and were able to take down some giants and powerful beasts. Oh, I also found this decent chainsaw in a nearby drop, and the max level female Dino Crocuta was finally tamed at the end of day 23. With this little wild pack, most things wouldn't want to mess with us, or even stood a chance in the first place, because these fellas did some insane damage. We were able to freely explore the great dunes and gather as much chitin as we needed. Plus, it looked really cool running across the sandy hills on the back of big hyenas. I stopped to tame a dung beetle and a vulture. The beetle was named Freddy and the vulture got the name Vanessa. At home I turned most of the chitin into cementing paste, crafted and placed a fabricator as well as a generator for later uses, threw Freddy out to do his daily duty, and went on a solo exploration with one of the hyenas. The way up the mountain plateaus was a cakewalk, knowing that most, if not all critters wouldn't mess with me. Once we reached metal nodes, I used Grog in order to collect a good chunk of metal. I tested out the chainsaw I got earlier, and I gotta say it's funny how this thing is better at wood harvesting than my phony dragon. Anywho, I spent way too much time jumping up the stupid cliffside to reach this drop which had no good stuff. At least I got these flak gauntlets from a yellow drop a bit further away. And I can probably already hear you, dude, just get an RG, makes it way easier to reach loot drops. Funny little rule though, I cannot tame any fly in this 100 days besides a certain mineral-obsessed dragon that lives in the scorching mountains. After some more resource gathering, I managed to craft a nanny, let the hyenas breed and place down a soul terminal, which would pick up the babies. I expanded my base a little bit further, but had to gather more cactus in the process. Finished this little outside area, placed the generator and cables on it, and checked the soul terminal. I got a baby hyena with all the stats I wanted, but I didn't raise it cause I needed more gasoline to power the generator. Lots of ammo and narcotics were made instead, also placed an upgrade station to grind all the unnated loot early on. On day 28 I ran across the dunes and saw another max level Eureka monster. This one will be mine. I also got a better ghillie mask from a drop which would protect me from the heat even better. I grabbed some structures for a taming trap, made more drink ammunition and turned a couple of darts into improved ones. Once I reached the raptor-like monster, I proceeded to pin it down with a net gun, laced the gates around it and pummeled him with darts. The improved ones really did a number on him. I gave him some mutton once he fell asleep, waited a bit and he was tamed. The next morning I looked around the neighborhood for a female counterpart for him, and I found the one Eureka monster that killed me a couple days ago. Whilst clearing the area a bit, a giant centipede destroyed my armor, but that didn't stop me. I still netted the Eureka monster and did the same thing I did with the male. I introduced these little lovebirds to each other, and Eureka monsters might not be as powerful as my current Dino Crocudas, but they are a lot faster, possessing a nice little kick attack and a howl as well as pack bonus. I placed some air conditioners near the mating Eurekas as it got dark and wanted to raise the baby hyena, but the nanny wasn't working. So I placed a wind turbine instead, and that apparently fixed it for some reason. Also hatched a male and female Eureka with all the good and needed stats, as well as a male Dino Crocuda. For the rest of the day I simply explored unknown terrain in the hopes I could find some deep desert loot crates, whilst grinding bugs into powder. After some time I actually found a drop with a really rare and hidden item inside.
Got him!
Jokes aside, if you do enjoy this video at any point, consider to like, subscribe, share around, it really does help out. Anyway, I found out that Dino Crocudas don't get attacked by deathworms. Day 31 I kept exploring the endless dunes, hoping I might find another crate. I did find a max level Ceratosaurus near the Colosseum. This prickly little numbskull is a force to be reckoned with. They might prove useful sooner or later. But for him I needed some stronger ammunition. After some time passed, I reached the more rocky desert region and got surprised by another sandstorm. We slowly proceeded our walk, dodged some wild hyenas, and the sandstorm faded and we sprinted back home. There the good stat Eurekas were fully grown, so I hooked them up. The first baby was named Ares. I left him to grow up, and in the meantime I gathered berries, made narcotics and a fridge as well. Once Ares was fully grown, we had a much faster and slightly stronger mount. And we simply ran around, killed a bunch of critters for resources and XP. Near the evening we made it to a second loot crate, which gave us quite some good stuff. And towards the end, Ares and I fought and killed a deathworm. Brutally injured and barely alive, we kept on running across the sand. Stopped atop the small mountain to heal up, and made our way home with this essential threat in our way. At home I grinded all the useful stuff I got from my level spree, made the best grill in the world, and checked my oil pumps, which gave me a surprising good amount of oil, and also hatched this Eureka monster with a HP mutation, and increased my little grind corner. I spotted a red drop close by and tried to reach it, but it only had garbage to offer. Crafted some concussive arrows, a modded item I definitely needed later on, but they were quite expensive, so I simply spent the rest of the day gathering and grinding for more of these arrows. The next morning I ran across the sand and into the mountains cause I was looking for a certain creature, but couldn't find one of good level. At least I found this decent sword and made even more arrows. My search continued the next day until Ares and I ended up in the more dangerous mountains that we haven't been in yet. And after some dodging and fighting, I saw it. A level 174 pure Chupacabra. A heavily armored mineral crushing brute wyvern would be a must to level up my ways of metal gathering. I had to be careful, since in order to knock one out, you must hit them with the concussive arrows in the face, and well, they get a bit explosive when you do that. They were passive tameable once, but not anymore. I ran away and jumped up this ledge where she couldn't reach me. I had to rinse and repeat this for the rest of this day. And even the next day, but of course she just had to run down a cliff into a much more dangerous zone. She was next to a land crocodile golems and a Kaiser dragon. I was almost about to give up on the pure, but I'm a stubborn bonehead, so I didn't. I tried to play careful and fast, got in a couple more shots, managed to lure the dragon away and finally got the last shot on the brood wyvern. I fed her some crystal and waited for her to tame up, patiently from a safe distance. She was tamed and I named her Obsidian. Day 38 was all about getting back home in one piece. I equipped Obsidian with a saddle. She had some fiery kicks when standing on her tail and explosive ground stomps, as well as a furious fist barrage to collect everything in her way. And with her lovely roly-poly, she could travel at a good speed, whilst destroying every obstacle. Oh, one more thing to mention, I got this nice flag blueprint from this drop. I was greeted by this Polovia next to a red drop, and this one had some pretty nice stuff actually. Afterwards I looked for some possible future base spots and decided that this one at the green obelisk would be perfect. Not many hostile dinos, water and space. So I crafted a bunch of adobe structures at base, rolled over to the future home spot, cleared the place a bit, and found out that I couldn't build here. So I grabbed my things and looked for another spot. Search for a new home continued until around 11 AM or so. I decided to simply build in the little flat valley next to my starter base and placed foundation after foundation, but I gotta say there is no need for adobe structures to be this obnoxious to craft. It takes way too long. I placed some gates and pillars until it looked like this. This entire process of building, crafting and gathering took till day 43. But on day 41 I found this crossbow in a drop. I also had to build a stone wall around the house just to be safe. Since building is quite boring, I shall just skip forward. Not the prettiest base I built, but it still looks decent. All of day 44 was spent doing nothing but moving every tiny thing from the starter hut over to the actual base. You know, the grill, wind turbine generator, forges, boxes, etc. as well as all the items. This continued till the early morning of day 45. Checked out this drop. Once that was done, picked up some of my dinos, moved them all to the new, more secure base. Placed everything down for the breeding area and placed a pipe to hopefully one day place an industrial cooker right here. But for now I had to connect the base with the little puddle nearby. Started with the ground foundation for the actual greenhouse, but was short on crystals, so we rolled to the mountains. There we shot a golem who the bosses with some explosive kicks, and cleansed the mountains of its metal, obsidian and crystal. Filled to the brim with resources, we rolled across the dunes back home. On day 47 we fought our first alpha. This guy wasn't a challenge at all, and he dropped a AC2 loot crate and alpha blood. The loot crate gave me some saddles and a mastercraft longneck rifle, making taming a lot easier. At home I finished building the small greenhouse, had to collect the seeds and made some improved trank darts. At midnight I found this high-level concave Venator and started tranking it. It was very easy and simple to knock her out. She will be useful later on. Whilst she was snoozing on the floor, I checked out the green orb once more for Orbis, but found this max-level Thorn Dreadweaver instead. These giant spiders take their prey down with intense speed and high ferocity, and I knew this was exactly the kind of creature I want for the desert. I picked up some taming trap structures at home. The concave was also fully tamed and I named her Harley. We went back to the Dreadweaver and cleared the area a bit. Whilst riding my hyena I tried to trap the spider. Luckily she ignored us. At one point though I had to lure her out of the water, netgunned her, but then remembered that I couldn't build too close to the green orb. I eventually managed to trap her, biting her with Harley to inflict her unique corrosive acid in order to deal extra torpor damage towards the Dreadweaver, since they had a lot of torpor but little health. She got a bit low for my taste, so I had to drag a corpse over to her. After that I continuously pummeled her with darts and acidic teeth. She snuggled up, I gave her some of the mutton I still had left. She took the rest of this day till she was tamed. Day 50, I settled her up and she was scary, insanely fast, probably the fastest mount that I ever had in Ark. Similar to Obsidian, she would also destroy rocks, trees, etc. if she ran through them. Also being able to drift by holding down control whenever I turned while sprinting gave her the ability to do incredible sharp turns. Possessing a nasty bleed damage made her a really good hit and run creature. After this fun little race, I prepared well enough to find and perhaps tame a good level male Dreadweaver, and indeed found one. Putting him into a net and trap was the easy part. During the tranking phase, a few small inconveniences happened here and there.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the?
But we still managed to knock him out, opened a loot crate, secured the surrounding area and tamed up the male spider. On my way home, I saw and killed this Alpha Rherosaurus for some sweet loot. The two spiders had some fun in my base, and I realized that I was almost at the point where I could craft the industrial forge. But first, let's go to the mountains and gather more metal. I got involved into a small little fight with the residents, and out of the blue, this happened. I got booted from my server, so I tried to get back on as fast as I could. I loaded back, and to my surprise, everything was safe and sound. Well, almost. I got back to the resource grind, smelted the metal at home, and got a breeding pair of Dreadweavers with the good stats. Day 53 they were fully grown, and I replaced the wild pair with the stat ones. Whilst they were busy laying eggs, I went back to the green orb, and near it I saw a max level Dilophovenetrix, but its stats looked all weird in the Awesome Spyglass, so I decided to tame it out. Upon tame, his stats fixed themselves, so I have no idea what just happened there. After that I searched for death worms, but of course when you need one, you can't find one. I only needed their leech blood to tame this Chupacabra. Oh yeah, and I got disconnected again. Back again, and Vanessa was involved in a bloody fight, but managed to save her. Towards the end, I hatched my new Dreadweaver and named him Hermes. After more and more metal smelting, I was finally able to craft the industrial forge. Now you understand why my roof has a giant hole. Besides that, I took Hermes out for a walk, and his imprinted damage was a lot better. We opened a couple of red drops, found and killed a deathworm within the dunes, but sadly it gave no blood. The rest of the day was spent looking for loot crates and perhaps Daedons, since I'd need one to heal my creatures a lot faster. I found an Alpha Shantongosaurus, but with Hermes on low health, avoided that one for now. I gotta say though, it's really nice that most wild dinos won't attack me when I'm sitting on Hermes. I killed another deathworm, and this one gave me leech blood. Combining that with my own blood allowed me to craft carnal blood packs, the taming food for the Chupacabra. I found the high level female, set her low with my net gun, knocked her out, tamed her up and named her Charlie. I only tamed her because she can harvest 3 times more mutton than anything else, just in case if I ever find another Orbis. Later on a sandstorm hit, and I witnessed the pure power of the Eureka monster. Still sucks that I can't see anything. Next day I mainly looked for Daedons, and Dreadweavers are really good in flat and even terrain, but also shine a little bit in the mountains. Anyway, I saw an Alpha Cerrado and turned to the dunes again. Opened this really nice loot crate, killed another deathworm and my first wyvern with some net gun and weaver action. I also got rid of some Cerrados that were either low level or had trash stats. After the sun went down, I collected a few pearls, which you can find within the dried out rivers and lakes on this map. I was on just a small little gathering run, pummeling minerals and trees into the ground. Later on, a chemistry bench had been made, which allowed me to craft concussive arrows way faster. I would need these for a Ceratosaurus. Usually you'd use a catapult, but the arrows mean a guaranteed knockout and not a guaranteed kill. After a long search, I found this level 132 female. She had pretty decent damage, so I netted her down, but I gotta say, I really love it when the shots don't count. Well, that was a waste of resources, so I made more arrows. This time I looked in another area where I've seen some before, and I found this max level Cerrado. Gotta say though, it's nice to see how this so-called prickly stubborn dino is afraid of me, which made it impossible to lure it into the small trap, so I netted him down, but just like with the other one, he wouldn't gain torpor, so I quickly sprinted back home, grabbed some different structures, got back to the Cerrado, netted him again, and built gates around him. And this actually worked. Once he got up, I managed to hit his snoot and knocked him out. He was tamed on day 60. I immediately ran back to the dunes and checked for a partner with equal or better stats. Took down a few more worms and a wyvern for his talents. But in the end I got back to the level 132 female I tried to tame 2 days ago, and did the exact same process again. She woke up with some pretty nice stats, then ended up in my breeding corner. On day 61 I got 2 baby Cerrados with the good stats and let them grow up. Meanwhile I got disappointed by this drop and shortly after challenged the Alpha Shanto. To be honest, he was not as strong as I thought. One slate he gave me 1 loot crate with an insane long neck inside. 2 Cerrados were fully grown and they did the deed. Ares sniffed something out. Probably means that another sandstorm is on its way. I hatched the Cerrado from the stat pair and named him Jack. And I was right, Ares knew that a storm was on its way. This time we went out and cleared the desert a bit, since his damage was just insane. The next day I got hit with a health and damage mutation on both the Cerrados and Dino Crocudas. Letting them breed whilst I was asleep IRL was a good idea. Jack was also fully matured and he got some nice moves, like entering a tantrum mode where he deals more damage and heals himself. a violent impale attack where he slams the target on the floor 3 times afterwards, tail swings and horn jabs. I went ham on everything in my sight to level him up. I got pretty low, so I returned home and reshaped the whole arrangement of breeders to breed for more mutations. Oh yeah, I also found this level 168 Daedon and knocked it out. But I only had prime meat, so it took a bit longer. Till the early morning of day 63 to be exact. Once she was safe and sound, I realized that my base had no water, so I checked the pipes. And they were severely broken, so I quickly fixed them. Made a bunch of pet food kibble, perfect for feeding dinos, especially Daedons, when they heal. On day 64 I received the second patch of health and damage mutations on my hyenas and Cerrados. Jack and I ran across the sandy dunes until we reached these ruins and entered them for the first artifact. Leading our targets down and impaling them whilst shooting at the Arthros from a good distance was our best strategy, but the rubble golems gave me a headache. We jumped across the deadly insta-death pit of this cave and fought even more, but Jack got quite low, so I told him to go all out. He entered his tantrum mode, dealing way more damage, and also healed himself whilst attacking. This way nothing could really stop us. And we killed one golem. I grabbed the artifact and we wanted to leave, but the path we cleared earlier was already filled, with a true monster amongst them. I looked for another way, but dropped right in front of the fire spitter. Jack did his best, surviving with little health left. He killed the cluster of creatures. After that fight we ran past everything and made it out of the cave. The breeders did their business whilst I was asleep, so I was gifted with the 3rd damage mutated Cerradosaurus. I was looking all over the desert for a certain creature, but I couldn't find it. I killed 2 Alpha Herreras. One dropped a really good pistol, and later got the 3rd health mutation on the Cerrados. Things look really good on our side, fellas. My search continued. I killed another Alpha Herrera and later on found the super high level matron. Now I can actually introduce him. This intelligent elder dragon is the Kaiser of Flames and a force of nature to be reckoned with. So I decided to tame him. It's really simple actually. Walk up to him, level 105. He will do a little threaten display. You drop a single black pearl on the floor and back off. He picks it up and you can do it again after some time. I did this over and over again until I reached 38% taming. I became the friend of the red dragon, meaning he won't attack me unless I attack first. Also, he didn't do his threaten display anymore. I dropped pearl after pearl after pearl, and towards the evening he was tamed and named Aragon. We made our way out of the mountains and back home. I gave Aragon a saddle, and he got quite a list of moves, such as a nice fire breath, a fire palm slam, and his insane Kaiser flame. I used his fiery bombardment to kill these atmospheric jellyfish, which gave me really nice resources. We killed a lone lightning wyvern for a single talon, but later on fought even more wyverns at the trench for the talons which I need for the boss fight. Aragon held his own pretty well, but too many wyverns did quite a number on him. We also killed this alpha fire wyvern with relative ease. I placed its head on my wall and cleared the soul terminals. The Ark Gods gave me another patch of mutations on my projects. I collected some stone for cementing paste to make a cooker, organized my breeders again, grabbed Jack, and we headed to the second cave on this map. There was not much danger in this one, except for 2 fire spitters who did quite a number on Jack, but he took it like a champ. This loot crate was unreachable, by the way. After just a little bit we reached the artifact room, and I lured as many targets down into this pit as I could. Followed the pathway, fought a bit more, and reached the artifact and grabbed it. Day 69 we had to fight our way through some insects to reach the entrance. Once back at Aragon, we flew out of the canyon, checked the oil pumps, I healed up Jack, placed the second artifact in my base, cleared the soul terminals again, just flew over the desert, killed some wyverns here and there, and that's about it. The next day I received more mutations once again. Besides that, I only entered wyvern turf and committed some crimes against them. What can I say? I need those talents. This lovely little wyvern genocide continued till the next morning. I simply left to not risk Aragon's life, but I decided to attack this Titanosaur. Why? Because it's cool. Simply bombarding it with Aragon's Kaiser flame and gaining stamina back on top of the cliffs made it way too easy. Sure, it took most of the day, but we eventually killed it. Day 72 gave me the 5th health mutation on the Dinocrocutus. It's probably obvious, but I will use Dinocrocutus and Cerrados in the boss fight, considering they both deal good damage, the Cerrados can heal themselves, and both are immune to normal torpor, makes them a pretty good choice. Plus I didn't want to use something that would have been an obvious choice. Anyway, Obsidian and I punched more minerals and fought not 1 but 2 golems. Brought all the stuff back home and collected some wood. A whole real-life night passed again and I was surprised by a really nice bundle of mutations once more. I also found a good female heel piggy, so I quickly knocked her out. She was eventually tamed, and I let the Daedons breed because having an imprinted one is always way better. I rearranged the Cerados and hyenas as well. I was on a small harvesting trip with obsidian once more, and at home got a baby Daedon with all the good stats. She was named Medic.
Jawohl!
I also got another HP mutation on the horned dino. For the rest of the day, I looked in the mountains for the third and final cave, but I couldn't find it. I eventually found the entrance, and not that far in the cave we already got surprised by insects of all kind, and even a young fire spitter. They are the ones that hurt the most. A bit further in we fought a second fire spitter. He did quite some damage, but we could handle it. We simply ripped and teared our way through our opponents and reached the last artifact we needed. I picked it up, Jack healed up on the way out, but we got attacked by a third fire spitter. Once defeated, we had to kill this golem that blocked the way. We made it outside, I jumped on Aragon and flew back home. The last artifact was placed. I didn't do much on this day besides obtaining some more lovely mutations. Other than that, I simply looked for desert loot crates, but none of them gave anything useful. I still couldn't find anything the other day, so I killed some worms instead. Much later I found and killed a second alpha wyvern and normal wyverns. I always kept an eye open for AC2 alpha since they drop loot that is actually useful. Well, apparently not this alpha concave though. I upgraded some of my armor a little bit in the upgrade station and checked out loot drop after loot drop, but once again couldn't find anything breathtaking. Towards the night I challenged another Titanosaur that was a bit too close to my base spot for my taste. We killed it the next morning. Other than that, not much happened. I did craft all the saddles for my future boss army. I'll have 9 Cerados and 9 Dino Crocudas. I also collected some metal and obsidian from nodes and golems alike. Day 80 was a weird day. I went back into the first cave mainly for obsidian. Oh, but I found these boots in a cave crate. And I decorated my base with a taxidermy. After more breeding, I received the 9th health and damage mutation on the Cerados. Got these really good ride gloves from a crate. And finally, after all this time, painted my armor. On day 82, I got these really good flak boots, flew around a lot and challenged my third Titanosaur. I mainly do this because I can and because the Titanosaurs are annoying. They just take away way too much space. After a lovely firebomb barrage, fell to his knees, and I spent some time grabbing a couple more wyvern talents. On day 84 I found, knocked out and tamed 2 low-level Rexes, male and female. The primary use was quite simple, staying in one place and constantly laying eggs to grind for XP later on. Not much happened on the next day though. I waited for these fellas to grow up and combined the mutations. We had a total of 11 health and damage mutations on the Cerados, and 9 HP and damage on the Dino Crocudas. On day 86, after a small little killing spree, I got the first Cerado with all the mutations. I also got the first hyena and the second Cerado who had all the mutations. Other than that, I was just sitting around at base, waiting for the Dino Crocudas to give me another perfect child. But in the meantime, I did make some stimulant as well as some healing potions, which I need for the boss fight at the end of these 100 days. Day 89 I got the second Dino Crocuda which had the mutations. They would take a bit longer until they made enough babies, so in the meantime I hatched all 9 boss Cerados and named every single last one of them after a random person who wrote a comment under my last 100 days. Whilst they were growing up I went on a little meat run, and from here on till day 90 I leveled up all the Cerados with Rex babies. I think I sacrificed 15 to each of them. On day 91 I had all of the Dino Crocudas there as well, and did the same thing again, named them after some people from my last 100 days. Make sure to check that one out if you like. They had to grow up, so in the meantime I healed up all the Cerados. Once the doggos were fully grown I leveled them all up as well. This took till the end of day 92. I also upgraded the saddles once. Luckily I had all the materials for that. And from day 93 till day 98 not much happened. I prepared myself a bit more, went on some meat runs, looked for loot, and that's about it. Day 99 I did the last few preparations. I crafted some unique soups which might help me out in this fight. I only fought the Manticore once in Ark, so better be prepared. I also just crafted a bunch of ammo, etc. But also looked around my base and said goodbye to everyone. I thanked Christy for being such a good early mount, Vanessa for being the best shoulder pet, Boulder and Grog for helping me out with metal, stone and flint, Ares for carrying me through the desert. I thanked Hermes for being my fastest mount, Obsidian for being the by far best mineral gatherer I had, Jack was honored for being such a badass, my Dino Crocudas for their insane uses earlier on, Aragon for his flight and strength. After that I picked up my entire army and went to bed, waited for the next and final day. Day 100, it was time. Time to buckle up and fight the Guardian of the Desert, the Manticore himself. I grabbed all the tributes I needed to enter the arena. Aragon and I flew to the green orb and cleared the waters. I threw out my army one by one, gave all of them a bit of food, placed the tributes and activated the terminal. Once we entered the arena, I jumped on Medic and whistled my army down from the cliff. The Manticore was just flying above us, shooting his poisonous barbs at us. I shot him a few times from a distance. His barbs are by far the worst thing. They deal insane torpor damage. The flying menace landed eventually and my army went ham on him. Death worms started to appear as well, but they stood no chance. I was just trying to avoid the poison projectiles, since they could put me to sleep. He landed a second time and my army rushed in. I was in the background healing them. Deserados healed himself as well, which helped out a lot. I got hit by his barbs and ate some stimulant to negate the torpor. He kept to the sky for quite some time. Chasing me and Medic around, I shot the Manticore every now and then. He landed briefly and my critters got some good hits in. Deathworm showed up more often, but they couldn't do anything. I still got hit by some barbs, so I healed with potions. The boss landed for the 4th time and I could tell my army had enough. They mauled the Guardian in a couple of seconds and killed him. We did it. We defeated him. I looked at the hologram and walked into the light. I wanted to thank every single one of you who watched this video till this point. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope you liked it, and if you did, consider to like and subscribe. It really does help out. Have an absolutely amazing day, and I'll see you guys in my next adventure. Goodbye.
Ha 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 ha!